that they abstain from writing about it. Full disclosure, the editor of The Economist sometimes attends. Because, you wonder, full disclosure, well, that is full disclosure. I mean, to anybody in the know, you just told us why you're writing a publication from this angle. Or I should say writing an article from this angle on this topic. Because the meetings are off the record, they are catnip to conspiracy theorists, but the attraction for participants is obvious. They can speak candidly, says Mr. Davignon, without worrying how their words might play into tomorrow's headlines. So they find out what other influential people really think. Big ideas are debated frankly. Mr. Davignon credits the meetings for helping to lay the groundwork for creating the euro. He recalls strong disagreement over Iraq. Some participants favored the invasion in 2003, some opposed it, and some wanted it done differently. Last year, the debate was about Europe's fiscal problems and whether the euro would survive. The world is a complicated place with oceans of new information sloshing around. To run a multinational organization, it helps if you have a rough idea of what is going on. It also helps to be on first-name terms with other globocrats. So the cosmopolitan elite, international financiers, bureaucrats, charity bosses, and thinkers constantly meet and talk. They flock to elite gatherings such as the World Economic Forum at Davos, the Trilateral Commission, and the Bao meeting in China. They form clubs. Ethnic Indian entrepreneurs around the world join TIE, the Indus Enterprise. Movers and shakers in New York and Washington join the Council on Foreign Relations, where they can listen to the President of Turkey one week and the Chief of Executive Intel the next. The Chief Executive of Intel the next. Intel as in the computer company Intel. The world's richest man, Carlos Slim, a Mexican telecoms tycoon, hosts an annual gathering of Latin American billionaires who cultivate each other while ostensibly discussing regional poverty. They sit around and discuss regional poverty and how they're the cause of it. That's what they do. Seriously, while puffing cigars, and you know what they do when they're done with the cigar. That's right. They Lewinsky that thing. They do it up. That's how these people get down behind the scenes. Look into it. I know it sounds absolutely crass and disgusting, but I'm not even, I say that in that manner for no other purpose but for comedic effect. However, these people really do such things. That part of it is no joke. Davos is perhaps the glitziest of these globocratic gatherings. Hundreds of big wheels descend on the Swiss ski resort each year. The lectures are interesting, but the big draw is the chance to talk to the other powerful people in the corridors. Such chats sometimes yield results. In 1988, the Prime Minister of Turkey and Greece met Davos and signed a declaration that may have averted a war. In 1994, Shimon Peres, then Israel's foreign minister, and Yasser Arafat struck a deal over Gaza and Jericho. In 2003, Jack Straw, Britain's foreign secretary, had an informal meeting in his hotel suite with the president of Iran, a country with which Britain had no diplomatic ties, but Davos is hardly a secretive institution. It is crawling with journalists. The other globocratic shindigs are opening up too. Even Bilderberg has recently started publishing lists of participants on its website. Exactly. Of course they're now publishing lists of participants, because they've been exposed for years now by people the likes of even Alex Jones been exposing them. So that being the case, they're going to be creating these new groups. They probably already have groups that exist that are just like the Bilderberg group, but they're not called that. They're called something else because that's how it works with these people. It's very simple. They create these groups and then they let the group get exposed and the group dissolves, it disbands. That's why they have these groups, because then people expose the group and they don't expose the people, and they stay away from the specific names. They might list the names of the people in the group, but it's looked at as being a group thing. Oh, you exposed the Bilderberg group. Okay, well, eventually the Bilderberg group's going to dissolve, all right? And you know what's going to happen then? All of those people are going to go to a different group, and it's going to be another, however many years before we find out about it, and then that group will get exposed, and by that point they'll have another group ready to be started, and it's cyclical. That's exactly how it works. Some American organizations, such as foreign policy think tanks, are also well placed to exert global influence. The Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, for example, has established itself as one of the most globally trusted talking shops, with offices in Beijing, Beirut, Brussels, and Moscow, as well as Washington, though it has yet to fulfill the vision of its founder, Andrew Carnegie, who wanted it to abolish war. The key to wielding influence, says Jessica Matthews, Carnegie's president, is very simple. You hire the best people. In countries where think tanks are subservient to the state, such as China and Russia, foreign outfits such as Carnegie enjoy a reputation for independence. If they can back this up with useful knowledge, they can sway policy. For example, Carnegie scholars advised the authors of Russia's post-Soviet constitution. And when relations between America and Russia grew frosty under President George W. Bush, Carnegie's Moscow office helped keep a line of communication open between the two governments. Such meetings are, quote, an important part of the story of the superclass, unquote, says Mr. Rothkopf, the author of the eponymous book. What they offer is access to, quote, some of the world's most sequestered and elusive leaders. As such, they are one of, quote, the informal mechanisms of global power. Some globocrats think that we're good. Some globocrats think the importance of the forums like Davos is overstated. Howard Stringer, the boss of Sony, is the kind of person you would expect to relish such gatherings. Welsh by birth, American by citizenship, he took over Japan's most admired company in 2005 when it was in serious trouble and turned it around in the face of immense cultural obstacles. He says he has enjoyed trips to Davos in the past, but will not attend this year. He can learn more, he says, by listening to his 167,000 employees. On the face of it, there seems to be much said for the world shakers and movers meeting and talking frequently. Yet for all their tireless information swapping, globocrats were caught napped by the financial crisis. Their networks of contacts did throw up a few warnings, but not enough to prompt timely action. Really? So that's what it was? It was the fact that they didn't recognize it and they didn't have enough warnings to prompt timely action? Good Lord. Absolute nonsense. And again, like I said, when this article said full disclosure, the editor of The Economist sometimes attends. Come on, that is full disclosure, and you just keep proving it over and over again. This is absurd. Oh, saying this, there was not enough to recognize that we needed timely action. Oh, how silly. Alright, back to the article. The limits of Jaw. Jim Chanos, a hedge fund manager who made his first fortune betting that Enron was overvalued, he warned the G8 finance minister in April 2007 that banks and insurance firms were heading for trouble. He made another fortune when the bank shares crashed, but is still furious that his warnings were politely ignored. He thinks it's an outrage that several senior regulators from that period are still in positions of power, and he accuses some bankers of, quote, a wholesale looting of the system. Yeah, truthfully so, by paying themselves bonuses based on what they must have known were phantom profits. Exactly. And thinks they should be prosecuted. Indeed they should. Globocrats failed to avert the crisis, but they rallied once it struck. Rich country governments acted in concert to prop up banks with taxpayers' money. Oh my, these people are just brazenly shoving this in your face. This is, and again, I mean, anybody who knows what's going on here, who is this not going to piss off if you know about what the banks are doing? And who in America doesn't know what the banks are doing? I mean, even most of the general population is pissed about the banks being bailed out. They understand that that's wrong. Let's have the poor give the rich more money so the rich can stay rich. No. F that. If the rich's businesses are going to go under, then let the rich be poor. That's what I say about that. Anyway, back to this article. In America, the response was led by a well-connected trio: Hank Paulson, George Bush Jr.'s Treasury Secretary and a former boss of Goldman Sachs, Tim Geithner, Barack Obama's Treasury Secretary and a former boss of the New York Federal Reserve, as well as a veteran of the IMF and Council of Foreign Relations and Kissinger Associates, and Ben Bernanke of Harvard, MIT, Stanford, Princeton, and the Bush White House, who is now chairman of the Federal Reserve. The bailouts were unpopular everywhere, but may have prevented the world's banking system from imploding. No. All it did was prevent a small group of extremely wealthy people from losing a disgustingly large amount of money. That's all that it did. That's it. Nothing else. Governments are now trying to craft rules to prevent a recurrence. Lots of people have offered advice. Among the weightier contributions was a report from the Group of 30, G30, an informal collection of past and present central bank governors. The Volcker report, advocating a central clearing mechanism for derivatives trading and curbs on proprietary trading banks, helped shape America's Dodd-Frank financial reform bill. The G30 is influential because it consists of people with experience of putting policies into practice, says Stuart McIntosh, its director. So when it makes recommendations, they can be turned into action, he adds. Interesting. This almost sounds like it's miniature, like United States Economic Federal Reserve secret society. By the way, it's described here, the Group of 30. People out there want to do some research on the Group of 30, also known as G30, capital G30. And get that over to me. That would be, I'll be looking at it myself, but I mean, I don't always have time to look into as much stuff as I'd like to. Plus, I'm sure, I would hope at least, that there are people in my listening audience that have the desire to go further and take the next step, and rather than just listening to the show and what we get into on the show, take the information and run with it. Don't believe what I say. Check what you think, hey, that might not be correct. Check it. And if I'm wrong, please tell me. I'll correct myself. I'm a journalist. But that's pretty much where this one sits. This whole article. Wow. That's where I'm gonna leave that. I'm not even gonna really have any commentary after the article. I did enough during, and I still have plenty of stories to get to. So, without further ado, I'm going to take a real short break here. Play a track or two. And when I come back, I will finish covering the news. And during this break, I will try to scan like CNN and Fox and maybe Google News, and I'll see if I can find any updates on that Detroit police police headquarters shooting incident. All right. First track I'm playing is called Kenji and is by a hip hop group called Fort Minor. It's actually the hip-hop artist from Linkin Park. His name's Mike Shinoda. And although I don't really listen to Linkin Park, believe it or not, Mike actually has some serious skills lyrically. And this song is actually about a member of his family being held in the Japanese concentration / internment camps in 42, back when we interned the Japanese. And this is just a very, very powerful track. And after that, I will play another track by Fort Minor. That track also an excellent track, really well thought out, called Cigarettes.
My father came from Japan in 1905. He was 15 when he immigrated from Japan. He worked until he was able to actually build a store.
Let me tell you a story in the form of a dream. I don't know why I have to tell it, but I know what it means. Close your eyes, just picture the scene as I paint it for you. It was World War II when this man named Kenji woke up. Ken was not a soldier. He was just a man with a family who owned a store in LA. That day, he crawled out of bed like he always did, bacon and eggs with wife and kids. He lived on the second floor of a little store he ran. He moved to LA from Japan. They called him immigrant. In Japanese, he'd say he was called Issei. That meant first generation in the United States, when everybody was afraid of the Germans, afraid of the Japs, but most of all afraid of a homeland attack. And that morning, when Ken went out on the doormat, his world went black, cause right there, front page news, 3 weeks before 1942, Pearl Harbor's been bombed and the Japs are coming. Pictures of soldiers dying and running. Ken knew what it would lead to, just like he guessed. The president said the evil Japanese in our home country would be locked away. They gave Ken a couple of days to get his whole life packed in 2 bags. Just 2 bags, couldn't even pack his clothes. Some folks didn't even have a suitcase to pack anything in, so 2 trash bags is all it gave.